I've got a good example. In Myanmar, we're supporting the Ministry of Health and Sports to implement a project to build capacity to respond to HIV and AIDS in the GMS. So this project looks at border areas because in Myanmar, the prevalence of HIV and AIDS is higher in the border areas. Now, at the same time, these border areas are areas that are not under government control. So whereas normally we would go and engage with the Ministry of Health and Sports and work with them to understand what the needs are in these parts of the country, in this case, they weren't the key players. The government didn't have access to some of the project areas. So we couldn't do a stakeholder analysis starting out the same way that we would normally do. So instead, what we did is we went down to these areas and we met with the authorities in charge. So in this case, there were non-state armed groups, and we went out and sat and talked with them about the project that we were designing and understand what their priorities were for HIV and AIDS response and how the project could help them. And so by seeking out the views of these people who were completely marginalized by the government because they had been in active opposition to the government in fighting, by understanding what their priorities are and how they have already started to address the problem, we can then build on those local initiatives and make sure that the project takes advantage of what's already gone on and builds from the real problems that people are facing and not the perceptions that are understood by the government on the other side of the country. So by understanding that and by understanding also the differences among project covers 5 different townships in Myanmar, and understanding what the context is in each of those 5 townships, we've been able to make sure that the project responds appropriately to the different contexts in different parts of the country to make sure that it's more effective than it would be otherwise. Because by getting people's perspectives, by hearing them say what their expectations are, how they want to play a role in the project, how they want to benefit, then it's a lot clearer. We understand more clearly where we want to go with the project, and therefore we can take that information and make sure that the project design builds on that. On the other hand, if we sat at our desks and prepared the project there without meeting them, without hearing their views and concerns, without understanding what things were really like on the ground for them in areas that the government doesn't have access to, we wouldn't have made a project that's meaningful and that's responsive and sustainable to the people it's trying to help.